where we are today and how we think that journey will develop over probably the next 12 months. I'm taking credit for a lot of work that a lot of other people have done, primarily a gentleman called Sachin Verma, who is the enterprise architect for infrastructure and core IT. So everything from the floor of the data center up, he looks after, and he has been the engine behind this, although this is one part of a major transformation journey for our business. So cloud services, why do you do it, and really what does it look like when you're doing it and at the end? So we did it for a number of constraints reasons, what we couldn't do and what the business wanted. And every business always wants faster delivery, more delivery, and they want it now, they want it today. The objective was to provide on-demand service delivery, so for our teams to do what they needed to do, we wanted to give them access to constraint-free infrastructure, and highly elastic, and automated elastic. If demand increased, the provision of services would increase along with that. We wanted to make it very cost-effective. We were on the same kind of spiral of more cost, and we were not driving efficiency. The traditional time and cost restraints, we believe, have been significantly lowered, and I'll come back to that later. And our time to market constraints are dissolving. They're not completely removed, but they are dissolving. The characteristics that we think need to be delivered through self-service, access from anywhere, and in a collaborative manner. So geographically dispersed teams can access the same thing for development, test, for all of the normal life cycle tasks. It should be geographical location independent, rapid elasticity. Elasticity is a core characteristic that needs to be delivered from a cloud. What we have found is we have to deliver a highly standardized offering. It's going to be the same thing every time, up to a level. Now I'll come back to what that level is. It has to be SLA driven. You've got to measure everything, and it must be secure. And I'll touch on security. I'll really get to security at the back end. So we have seen a move from traditional IT, which on the slide is on the left-hand side, moving across to software as a service. So I'll kind of talk about our journey, how we moved through that journey. Our infrastructure until about 18 months ago was very vertical. We had a lot of IBM Power equipment, we had a lot of Solaris, and we had limited x86. The IBM hardware that we have was quite constraining. We could not virtualize outside the frame, and that became a great constraint. It's also very difficult to get balanced competition when you're vertically locked into vendor-specific hardware, and we wanted to get away from that, and not just in compute. So at different levels, at network, we are moving to a fabric infrastructure, and we're doing that in line with our capital expenditure. We're not choosing to spend a huge amount of money up front and completely move to fabric. We believe we can do that in steps that support where we need to go to. Storage is a particular challenge. Storage today, the controller is in the box, and that does not allow us to get to a generic storage offering from our vendors to drive costs down and to lift the control into a software layer that gives us all of the elasticity and on-time demand that we require. x86, highly generic. We've done that. We have virtualized across our machines, and we use VMware for that. OS for the future, we are on Linux. Linux is the OS. Everything else will deploy. So everything new we do is on x86, virtualized with VMware, and on Linux. Our middleware we have standardized on the Oracle suite, although what we tend to use is the core EA web logic offering that's been around for a long time. It's an elegant software set, and it gives us real flexibility in the integration space.
So we have
standardized that going forward,
and we
don't recognize
private,
public, or hybrid. We believe in cloud. So our legacy will be provisioned as cloud from the infrastructure up, and with that basis, then moving to a public and hybrid is much simpler.
The benefits
of doing this are in the virtualization and driving an internal cloud. In the past 18 months, we have not bought a single refresh box from IBM for our legacy infrastructure. And we have a lot of cores on IBM. We have not bought a single box. So for 18 months, we haven't bought a single thing. What we have driven is optimal use of the hardware. We have been much more efficient in our use of it. We admittedly have taken a pretty ruthless approach. We have not hit the boundaries, and that's in a vertical infrastructure. So we're already seeing, in the order of on compute only, avoided cost of about $30 million. And that's through virtualization and the management of that hardware.
As we move
to x86
and
highly generic x86, we have reduced the cost of buying a box for us over the past 2 years by about 60%. So by taking a generic hardware approach and separating the management software from the box, we're driving really huge savings. Our aim is to do that across everything. Our aim is to have soft firewall, soft routing, everything in software on x86, so that we can really drive cost efficiency. We can drive really effective management across the piece. So to widen the conversation a little bit away from the infrastructure, our viewpoint on cloud is risk-based. So where we host and what we host is driven by the criticality of the application to the business. So if I take core revenue systems, everything the money flows through, that's not on hybrid, and it's not in public. It won't be. We keep that contained, mainly because we can very accurately forecast the volume will pass through that, so it's stable. We don't need to rapidly expand it or close it. There are times we need to, but we can manage that. In the online space, where we're developing apps, microsites, everything is in the public space. We have no problem with that. And we know what we do and where. There are significant regulatory constraints on what we can do with our customers' data. It cannot be held offshore. It must be held within the Indian borders. Therefore, moving to pure public cloud is very difficult for our core revenue CRM systems and anything that customer data passes through. And we are big enough to build out our own cloud and treat it as hybrid. We also use a slice of T&D. T&D is the first emergency point of call. So our slice for test and development, if we really have a massive peak of traffic, we can clear down T&D very rapidly, move T&D out to Nextra, out to another third-party service provider. And how we do this, I'll come back to in the architecture. Virtualization has really been the bedrock on which we've done this, and then we're plugging virtualized environments into a management layer. So on the adoption of cloud in the Indian market, there's a 30% growth curve year on year in the use of cloud in India. We're slightly behind the US, parity with Europe broadly, and in the enterprise space, which is fundamentally different from startup or SMB, where cloud is highly attractive. You don't have CapEx, and you don't have financial
backing.
You don't have the huge financial numbers.
Doing
something new today on startup, or if you're doing something new, the architecture of the application tends to be cloud enabled. So the threading, rapid ability to onboard customers is there. It is less so in traditional ERP and our traditional enterprise products. They were designed 30, 20, 10 years ago, when that massive increase in customers that you would see for the likes of, let's say, Uber, some of those services, the applications aren't structured for that. And I'm not sure they need to be, although as the software vendors are moving to the cloud, so Oracle's cloud offering, SAP's cloud offering, they are having to re-architect the core applications to put them in the cloud. It's not necessarily something we want to go through or we want to do. But the move to the cloud is happening, and it will drive real benefit back into our business. So if we move to the architecture, so this is our architecture. You can draw a line vertically through any part of the red, internal or external, cloud, hybrid, public, private. We use the same architecture across everything. There are reasons. The reasons for doing that is if we are using the same thing, we are provisioning the same thing, we are managing the same thing. We don't have to have separation of teams to manage across. Within that, sorry, a little technical hitch. We are also standardizing on database. We standardize on Oracle DB, so we will use Oracle DB for everything. And sensitivity around that is historically we've used a lot of DB2. We have a better financial deal on Oracle DB. So anything new or any migration moves onto Oracle DB. Again, our OS is Red Hat Linux, and the application that sits on top of that, we are being much more standardized and much more disciplined in how we have controlled our code to keep different instances all aligned. This is a kind of spin-off from cloud. So as we move to the use of really highly virtualized infrastructure, you need the discipline within the teams to have windows. You can't have a free-for-all. It's not possible to provision infinite elasticity. And if you pre-plan and have the environments and the availability planned with windows for T&D, the project teams rapidly learn that you have to hit that window. If you don't hit that window, you will have to wait for the next window. That drives time consciousness to get the application into test and development, or rather into test and get a pass-through test, pass-through release. So that, therefore, that discipline has to work through the project plan, and we become better at project planning and much better at hitting our release windows, our release dates on our release windows. So we're seeing some fantastic dividends that we're good at being foreseen, but it is driving real business change in how we talk to our business and driving confidence in that. In the management of all of the layers, we are now doing policy-driven security, so we drive policies into firewalls. That gives us a much better central view and central control and central application of standards into everything we do. And there are significant benefits around that. In time to do things, everybody does the same thing. We can rapidly close any security gaps that are identified, any patching. All of this can be done reasonably centrally and in a managed plan and time-driven manner. We have our own network. We don't have difficulties networking or providing network. We are still now able to plan much better on growth on the network, the pre-provision network bandwidth that we will need between data centers or two data centers. This diagram is where we are. The journey is not complete. The orchestration layer across all of the platforms is going in, and that will be across every aspect of the infrastructure and the software that runs the infrastructure. Sorry, guys. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So we have put in a single orchestration layer across all the platforms. We did a selection across a number of things. We looked very hard at OpenStack, and we've moved to VMware because it is the most mature with the hooks we need into all of the elements that are readily available for what we do. We can handle RISC and CISC, Solaris, E-Series, x86, the enterprise storage level. We have enterprise-grade storage. We want to move towards commodity-grade everything. We really want to drive the cost out. We have 14,000 cores, roughly 14,000 cores of IBM power. We have avoided any refresh on a 5-year capital expenditure piece. We should be refreshing every 5 years. We haven't done that for 18 months, and we're able to manage within that. But that is financially very significant. It has also allowed us, given us that capital, to do the orchestration layer. This is self-financing. You don't need to do anything in the business to do this. It is self-financing. Our enterprise-grade hardware and commodity-grade hardware, we would like to be able to go to market on a reverse auction for storage boxes of whatever type of storage you choose, flash, spindle. Regardless, we would like to buy commodity product then. And we are getting much, much closer to that, and we now do that in the x86 space. Again, significant savings, 60% cost savings, cost drop in the past 24 months. But what we will do is we will really drive utilization. Our target on x86 is 80% utilization, 80% of the time, and then manage the peaks. We have seen 25% growth in our core data set. So every time you make a call, generates a CDR, we have seen a 25% increase on that over the past 12 months. That's driven a lot by data. There are many more data CDRs. Managing that across our application set and provisioning hardware to support that, we need to drive much better utilization out of our core hardware, and we are seeing that benefit come back to us, and it is coming back to us probably in 5 to 10% better utilization across the piece. There is one particular piece we have not virtualized. It's a standalone instance. We are deploying a new ETL technology from the US called Ab Initio. Our volume throughputs of a petabit a day, probably a petabit a day, give us concern around what the penalty would be of a virtualization layer on that. We have gone for x86 rack instead of blade. It's bare metal. We are going to test the real run-through of the volume on rack against rack with virtualization. We're going to measure it. We think that the penalty will be sub 5% of performance with VM. If it is, we're going to virtualize it. We want to virtualize everything. If we keep it on bare metal and we get a major spike, we have to keep building bare metal. Very time intensive. You've got to pre-plan. The constraints, you then have to run a project plan as opposed to adding another 1,000 cores from D&D if we need to at a particular point in time. And the cloud approach to our entire landscape, we think will drive utilization improvements of 50% plus. we can stand over those numbers. We're seeing those numbers. On some of our legacy hardware, we had utilization of sub 25% because we couldn't see it. Now we can see it. We can treat it as a pool of resource, and we can horizontally or vertically split that pool of resource any way we like. And that's providing huge benefits to our business. Cloud adoption drives a number of kind of challenges, issues. Some of them I think are real, and some of them aren't. There's one that I would like to deal with. That should you move to third-party cloud vendors, you need to be aware that the churn in that space is about 30%. 30% of those in business today in 12 months will not be there. That's what the numbers have told us so far. And whatever you do in the cloud, you have to have a secure repository for that work. If somebody goes out of business and you have your new web portal developed and ready to go, you can lose it. People go bankrupt getting your code back. You have to factor that into your thinking of where it's going to go and who you're going to do business with. The normal concern around cloud is about security. We have seen major incidents of security breaches on the cloud. I think the last big public one in the US was around Apple and photographs of various Hollywood stars. And Apple have got a secure cloud. It was a breach of passwords that did that. On security, cloud will give you a very standardized security set. Issues can be dealt with very quickly, and patches are rolled out all in a standardized, managed, measured way. If your people are sharing passwords, it doesn't
is on.
Can you see me?
Unmute and mute. Yeah, we can see you. We can see you, but can't hear you. Unmute and mute.
Can you hear me?
Unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Guys, I'm really sorry about that. We had a minor technical issue. I'm not sure at what point I was lost, so I'll talk about integration. We have standardized on a single integration platform, internal, external, and we have standardized on how we build and the patterns we use for all of our web services and APIs. This is an area that on this journey you should not
party providers. When you add up the cost of doing everything on an Amazon Web Services, in isolation, it does not look cost effective. If you are using third parties for your peak and for delivery of change, and for stuff that is time bound, you're only paying it for that period of time. You're not paying it 24/7, 365. It's worth doing the numbers on the costs and against the utilization to understand that kind of cost curve. We believe that it's very cost effective to move to cloud, particularly when you have to deliver stuff in very fast. It allows you to concentrate doing really well on the stuff that's important to customers. Production stability, all of those things are important. We have, in telco and financial services and others, we have significant regulatory constraints for good reason. The regulations are there to protect the consumer, and for good reason. You must factor the same constraints in. We cannot move customer data sets offshore. Therefore, anything we do, we don't do it, but we have a plan to completely anonymize data should we need to, if we hit a hardware problem where we do have to go to an externally foreign hosted a cloud service. But we don't think that will arise for us. As with any young industry, standards application is not where it needs to be at this point with cloud, and we can see that in the 30% churn of suppliers not being in business. So that it's not something we particularly worry about, but you have to give it due concern. Cloud allows you to apply a highly standardized discipline security regime to services you provide internally and externally. I need to come back again to the people. People are sharing passwords. If you have a security problem within your team, putting it on the cloud only allows more access to more things. Be very careful about where you place data. One of the other real benefits we're finding from the standardization of taking cloud across our entire enterprise is we are holding the same data in 10, 12 different places. We can now standardize that. We can hold it in central DBs. We hold it 3 instances, full redundancy, and we can federate the data. So our storage requirement, we think we can manage the cost envelope of that very effectively over the next 3 years. Well, we have a dedicated security team. We can invest in the security infrastructure, and we are applying all the cloud drivers to security. So our firewalls are policy driven. We can manage denial of service attacks. We can do it in a much simpler, much better managed way. The cloud will allow you to deal with reconstitution of services. It will allow you to deal with disaster recovery, but it has to be within a security structure that manages the different risk of keeping that mindset, you have to be very disciplined about what you do. The cloud allows you to deal with the hacks and deal with the issues faster, quicker, and cheaper than it does on a highly diverse, fractured legacy infrastructure. So that's hopefully at about 30 minutes. I think I've tied up at about 30 minutes. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. Okay. So I have two current questions. I'll deal with the second one first. It's fairly easy. Sachin Sachdeva, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Question, have you introduced a container model, Dockers, in your data center? No, we have not. In the future, we may do, but at this point, we have not. How much are the DevOps methodology being implemented, and which cloud space is used, AWS, Salesforce? Okay. We do not use AWS. We have a Salesforce implementation. It's on-premise. And let me rephrase that. We have a Salesforce implementation ongoing. It will be cloud-based. Everything is with Salesforce. It's for specific processes, sales processes within our B2B business. We have chosen it because it drives high standardization of process, and it will allow our field force to more effectively service our customers. It is cloud, but it's cloud on pre-configured Salesforce application. So we're doing that there. Are you sorry, let me keep up with the other questions. If I can find them. So DevOps, we are moving to DevOps. That is part of the journey, and we have started to do it. We actually do it in the online space, so in our portal development, our online, our apps development, we are doing it. We're not doing it in our core, although I expect that to expand over the next 12 months. Are you planning to move BSS, OSS for Airtel on cloud? No, we're not. Our BSS, OSS is the very heart of what we do. That is our business. Without BSS or OSS, our business will fail. There is not a BSS, OSS offering on cloud that we think would sustain our scale. There are vendors who are coming out with it. I think that traditional BSS, OSS vendors would be well advised to move to cloud. Although when I talk about cloud in that way, I mean a cloud approach to deployment rather than these massive transformations. But we will not be moving our BSS, OSS to cloud. There have been regional outages and services, so how can we protect that in cloud? Having DR is a start, and thinking through and planning that. Having pre-planned workbooks around active, passive, active, and having the teams well trained through that. Where the infrastructure is does not change what you should be doing in DR. It's on-premise, and with your vendor, you should have the same resilience that you would expect if you could do it yourself and you had unlimited money. How would you do it? 2 separate sites, third site for holding data. All of that applies, and you should apply that with any cloud vendor. Sorry, I have to scroll down. Is the biggest challenge ensuring identity management within the cloud? I don't think it's any greater than the identity challenge management we have. Although if you have remote working, identity management in the office, if it's somebody strange using somebody else's password, there are people circulating around. The password ID token, how you do that is up to you. We have a VPN, there are barriers, rapid password changes, those things, but I don't think the risk is any greater than it currently is on our legacy. Srikishna Partha Sarathi, sorry, I'm not very good with Indian names, I apologize. Any OpenStack or CloudStack internally using it for it? Do we have it? No, we don't use OpenStack or CloudStack. We are using vRealize from VMware and NSX and that product set. How does Internet of Things present a new risk to cloud security? This is fairly uncharted territory. Everything that has a battery on the desk in front of me will potentially in future have a mobile connection, SIM card, and will connect data around a set of sensors. The security around that needs to be the same as we have today. We need to apply the same security and more. And the security gates through which it passes and the data it passes need to go through a filter of sorts. I think we're very early in that journey. The potential uses of IoT, we're on kind of day one of that journey. Fitbit, iWatch, GPS tracking for vehicles, refrigeration monitoring, weather monitoring. We have started to do something that we think is interesting in the security space, and we have deployed a Hadoop cluster for our integration and our integration services and the data movements. We've primarily done it to look for pre-indication of failure. So rather than having service failure, we're looking for the little tremors or the indicators you get before failure happens. And we're using that on top of our ESB, and we're starting to see interesting things. Interpreting that data requires real thought and smart people, and we've got some smart kids who really understand it. Saurabh Malhotra is one of the guys who's doing this for us, works for KD. We think the application of big data to security of big data shows really interesting possibilities. It's not my particular expertise, but if you want to have a conversation with it, I think we can introduce you to our security team, and those are the guys who would really know how to answer your questions. Okay, so Pankaj Kumar, what tools do you use across DevOps? That's a very good question. What tools do we use across DevOps? Puppet. We're using Puppet. What are the security protocols used? For what? That's Alexander Alarajaya. I hope I haven't mispronounced that. What are the security protocols used? If you could give me a little tighter question, so what are the security protocols used? For what? For which part? I can answer that. Can you please tell us what is hybrid and public cloud in a single sentence? Public cloud is infrastructure you don't own on somebody else's premises. Hybrid infrastructure, our hybrid cloud, is the seamless transition of service between your owned infrastructure and the vendor's own infrastructure, where you can treat it as a single entity. think there were 2 commas in there and 1 full stop. Hopefully that was a single sentence. I have to say, so you understand, guys, I'm not English, I'm Irish, so if my English isn't perfect, there's a reason for it. Okay, so a private cloud strategy, a private cloud strategy may initially offer more control over your data and easier compliance to HIPAA standards and PCI. It is not inherently more or less secure. True security is more to do with your overall cloud strategy and how you're using the technology or comments. That is absolutely true. Absolutely true. You get a better, cleaner set of tools on cloud to implement policy. If your policy is not good, you're going to implement a not good policy. If your people cannot be trusted, you don't change the risk factor. You make it easier to control, but you don't change the risk factors you currently face. If one wants to shift data from one cloud service to another, is it an easy thing or not? This is entirely dependent on the cloud service you are using. There are third-party vendors who have highly developed landscapes, but it ties you to that vendor. You need to be very clear about what it is you want to do, in which and what services, how deep do you want to go down into the cloud use. And you really need to think through what you need to retain should you ever want to separate from that vendor. It can be easy, it can be hard, it depends on who you choose, but I think it depends much more on your thinking, what you hold, and how you can keep that containerized to deploy it somewhere else. So if you have a gold copy, a gold instance, how do you maintain that? How do you update it on a 24-hour basis so that should something happen, you can automatically deploy it somewhere else? I think being very clear and documenting what it's built on. So is it on Cassandra DB? Is it on Red Hat Linux 6.3? What hardware is it sitting on so that you can replicate it somewhere else is good practice. You can't outsource all of this to a third-party vendor. You still must own the thinking and you must retain the thinking. I thought you were using AWS infrastructure. Why not use Chef as AWS is using it in its product suite? A very good question for which I don't have an answer. We don't have an answer to that, but I don't know what Chef is. DevOps piece. Okay. Do you have a self-service portal for cloud buying and consumption? We do. Over here I have a team that are supporting me, helping me answer questions I don't know. Hi, can you explain hybrid cloud? Hybrid cloud is the ability to use your internal infrastructure, your entire internal landscape, and publicly available, it from Nextra, Airtel, AWS, Microsoft. How do you treat that as a single integrated whole so you can move seamlessly between the two? That for me is hybrid cloud. It's the public and private operating seamlessly as one. That's not easy to do. I don't think, are there any fresh? There's no more. Oh, I have one here. Did you look at Apache CloudStack as an orchestration platform? We did. So we think CloudStack is still immature. It didn't offer us what we needed for our legacy, and I'll explain that. If you have a large chunk of your legacy on IBM proprietary, another chunk of it on Oracle Solaris-based proprietary, and you have x86, For me to offer service to my business, I have to be able to spin up all three in real time to give the end-to-end development and test environment on which our people can do what they need to do. We then need to load that into production. OpenStack did not offer us that full range of capability. At the point we made the selection. If it's now available, it's now available. But at the point, we were thorough. It just didn't match up to what we needed. I'm getting told even now it doesn't. Okay, I don't think there's no. Okay, thank you very much. I hope I haven't bored you. I hope it's been informative. I hope I articulated myself well. I won't be watching a rerun. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McLean, for presenting this insightful webinar. I'm sure all the participants would also have benefited from your talk today. A recording of this webinar will be made available on vcca.com by tomorrow. It will be posted on that. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
You happy?
Very, very happy.
Good.
So I was watching it all outside.
Good.
Really nice.
So where's the Jack Daniels and crew?